The galaxy had belonged to the Vorthek for 3,000 years. Every species that met them learned this truth quickly. The Vorthek were built for war. They stood 12 feet tall with bodies covered in natural crystal armor. Their bones were harder than steel. Their muscles could crush metal with ease. They could survive in the cold vacuum of space without any protection. No weapon made by other species could hurt them. No army could stand against them. Commander Ziegther stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the reports from the outer rim. His scouts had found another primitive world. The planet was small and blue, spinning around a yellow star. The beings there called themselves humans. The early scans showed they were weak creatures. They had soft pink skin with no armor. They needed air to breathe and would die in space within minutes. They were small, barely 6 feet tall, and looked like they would break if touched too hard. Ziegther laughed as he read the report. These humans had somehow developed space travel, but their ships were tiny and slow. Their weapons were basic projectile launchers and simple energy beams. They had built cities on their world, but even their largest structures looked fragile compared to Vorthek architecture. This would be another easy conquest to add to the empire. The Vorthak had a simple way of dealing with new species. First, they would demonstrate their superior strength. Then they would offer the choice of surrender or destruction. Most species chose surrender after seeing what the Vorthak could do. Those who chose to fight were wiped out completely. It had worked for 3,000 years across 10,000 worlds. Ziegther called his officers to the war room. The chamber was massive, with walls made from the hardest crystal found in Vorthek space. Battle trophies from 100 conquered worlds lined the walls. Weapons that had failed to harm Vorthek warriors. Armor that had been torn apart by Vorthek. Hands. Flags from empires that no longer existed. Sub-Commander Veltar entered first. She was young for a Vorthok, only 500 years old, but already a veteran of 50 campaigns. Her crystal armor bore the scars of countless battles, each mark a badge of honor. She moved with the fluid grace that came from perfect physical conditioning and centuries of combat experience. "Commander, the human world is ready for conquest," Veltar reported. "Our long-range sensors show they have approximately 8 billion individuals spread across several continents. Their technology level suggests they have only recently achieved interstellar capability. Their defensive systems appear minimal." Ziegther nodded. "How many ships shall we send? A full battle fleet?" "Sir, I believe a single dreadnought would be more than sufficient," Veltar said. "These humans appear even weaker than the Zilithians we conquered last year." "We could use this as a training exercise for our newest warriors," the other officers agreed. Commander Raksith, the oldest warrior present at nearly 2,000 years old, spoke up. "In my experience, showing overwhelming force from the beginning prevents unnecessary bloodshed. These soft creatures will surrender immediately when they see our power." Ziegther considered this. The Vorthak were not cruel by nature. They simply understood that strength was the only universal language in the galaxy. Every species respected power, and the Vorthak had more power than anyone else. It was better to demonstrate this quickly rather than allow false hope to flourish. Very well, Ziegther decided. "We will take the Eternal Conquest and a small support fleet. This will serve as training for our junior officers while adding another world to the Empire." 3 days later, the Vorthak fleet entered the human solar system. The Eternal Conquest was a massive ship, over 2 miles long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Its crystal hull gleamed like a jewel in the starlight. Smaller ships surrounded it like a pack of predators. The humans detected them immediately. Radio signals filled the space between worlds as the humans tried to understand what they were. Seeing the Vorthak intercepted these communications easily. The humans seemed confused and frightened. Some voices called for immediate military response. Others urged caution and attempted peaceful contact. Ziegther found their reaction amusing. These tiny creatures were trying to decide how to respond to gods. He opened a communication channel using the human languages his computers had decoded from their transmissions. "Beings of the third planet," his voice boomed across all human frequencies, I am Commander Ziegther of the Vorthic Empire. You will prepare for integration into our territory. Resistance is not advised. The response came faster than expected. A calm female voice answered in clear, precise tones. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We request a meeting to discuss your presence in our system. We propose a neutral location where our representatives can speak safely. Ziegther was surprised. Most species either begged for mercy or immediately attacked when faced with Vorthic power. These humans seemed to be doing neither. They were requesting a conversation as if they had some standing to negotiate. You misunderstand your situation, human, Ziegther replied. You have no position to negotiate from. Your world will join the Vorthic Empire. The only choice is whether this happens peacefully or through force. We understand your position, Admiral Chun responded. However, we believe a brief meeting would benefit both our peoples. Surely, warriors as accomplished as the Vorthak are confident enough to speak with us before making final decisions. Several of the Vorthak officers bristled at what seemed like subtle mockery, but Ziegther held up a hand for silence. There was something different about this human. Her voice showed no fear, no desperation. She spoke as if she actually believed. Her people had something to offer the conversation. Very well, Ziegther said after a moment. We will meet at the space station in your outer system. You may bring 5 representatives. Any signs of treachery will result in the immediate destruction of your world. Understood, Admiral Chun replied. We will arrive in 6 hours. When the transmission ended, Sub-Commander Veltar spoke up. Sir, is it wise to delay? These humans might use the time to prepare some kind of attack. Ziegther laughed, a sound like grinding stone. What could they possibly do? Their weapons cannot harm us. Their ships cannot outrun us. If they try anything foolish, it will simply provide a demonstration of why resistance is futile. As the Vorthic fleet moved toward the meeting station, Ziegther reviewed what his sensors told him about these humans. They were indeed incredibly fragile by galactic standards. Their bones were hollow calcium structures that would snap under pressure a Vorthic child could apply. Their skin offered no protection against radiation or projectiles. They required a narrow range of atmospheric conditions to survive, yet something nagged at him. The human admiral had spoken with the confidence of someone who believed they held strong cards in this game. Ziegther had heard that tone before, from species that had some secret weapon or hidden alliance. But his scouts had been thorough. Earth was isolated, with no allies in nearby systems. Their technology was primitive. Their military forces were laughably small, perhaps, Ziegther thought. These humans were simply too naive to understand their situation. Some species took longer to accept reality than others. The meeting would be a good opportunity to educate them about the way the galaxy actually worked. The space station where they would meet was a small human construction orbiting the system's outer gas giant. It was barely large enough to hold both delegations, constructed from simple metal and ceramic materials that a Vorthak could tear apart with their bare hands. Ziegther almost felt sorry for these creatures. They had built their entire civilization from such fragile materials when the human ship arrived. Ziegther was surprised again. It was smaller than expected but moved with precision and grace. The docking procedure was flawless, suggesting skilled pilots. The humans who emerged were exactly as fragile as the scans had indicated, but they moved with quiet confidence. Admiral Sarah Chun was a small woman with graying hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration. Behind her came 4 other humans, each carrying what appeared to be recording equipment and data tablets. They showed no signs of fear or intimidation as they entered the station's main conference room. Ziegther ducked through the doorway, his massive frame filling the space. His crystal armor reflected the station's lights, creating patterns of rainbow colors across the walls. The humans watched this display with interest but not awe. One of them was actually taking notes. Welcome, Admiral Chun, Ziegther said, his voice naturally loud in the small space. I trust you now understand the futility of resistance. Admiral, Chun looked up at him calmly. Actually, Commander Ziegler, we were hoping you might help us understand something. Our people are curious about the Vorthak Empire and how it operates. Would you be willing to share some information before we discuss our situation? Ziegler found himself off balance again. This was not how these meetings usually proceeded. Commander Ziegler stared down at Admiral Chun, trying to understand what was happening. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever asked the Vorthak to explain themselves. They usually begged for mercy or tried to bargain for their lives. Sometimes they threatened war or claimed to have powerful allies. But none had ever politely requested information as if they were attending some kind of educational meeting. What do you wish to know? Ziegler asked carefully. His officers behind him shifted uncomfortably. Sub-Commander Veltar placed her hand on her weapon, expecting some kind of trick. Admiral Chun smiled, an expression that seemed genuine rather than forced. We are interested in your empire's longevity. 3,000 years is impressive by any standard. What would you say is the key to your success? Ziegler felt more confident now. This was familiar territory. Strength, he replied without hesitation. The Vorthak are the strongest species in the galaxy. We have never been defeated because no one can match our physical capabilities. Would you mind demonstrating? Admiral Chun asked. Our people learn better through observation than description. This request pleased Ziegler greatly. Most species tried to avoid seeing Vorthak power up close. He gestured to his officers, and they quickly moved furniture to clear a space in the center of the room. From their ship, they brought several items for demonstration purposes. The first item was a steel support beam, the kind used in human construction. To a human, it would require heavy machinery to bend or break. Ziegler picked it up with one hand and slowly closed his fist. The metal groaned and twisted, finally snapping in half with a sharp crack. Pieces of steel fell to the floor. The humans watched closely. One of them was recording everything while another took notes. Admiral. Chun nodded approvingly. Impressive grip strength, she commented. Approximately how much force would you estimate that required? Ziegler was not used to technical questions during demonstrations of power. I have never measured it precisely, he admitted. Perhaps 10 times what your strongest individuals could produce. Thank you, Admiral Chun said, making a note. Please continue. Next, Ziegler had his officers bring in a solid block of dense metal alloy. It weighed nearly 2 tons. Without visible effort, he lifted it above his head with both hands and held it steady for 30 seconds before setting it down gently. Excellent form, Admiral Chun observed. Your skeletal structure must be remarkably efficient to support that load without apparent strain. Again, Ziegler found himself answering unexpected questions. Vorthak bones are crystalline structures, much denser than the calcium-based bones of most species. They are effectively unbreakable by conventional means. The human taking notes looked up with interest. What about unconventional means? The question caught Ziegler off guard. I do not understand. Oh, just curiosity about theoretical limits, Admiral Chun said quickly. Please show us more. For the final demonstration, Sub-Commander Veltar drew her sidearm and fired 3 plasma bolts directly at Ziegler's chest. The energy beams struck his crystal armor and dissipated harmlessly, leaving only faint scorch marks. His armor was designed to absorb and redistribute energy attacks. Outstanding, Admiral Chun said with what seemed like genuine admiration. Your defensive capabilities are remarkable. I assume this extends to environmental hazards as well? Vorthak can survive in vacuum for extended periods, Ziegler confirmed proudly. We require no life support in most hostile environments. Temperature extremes, radiation, toxic atmospheres, none of these pose significant threats to us. Admiral. Chun turned to her team. Did everyone get good recordings of that? They nodded. She turned back to Ziegler. Thank you, Commander. That was very educational. Now, would you be interested in seeing what humans consider strength? Ziegler almost laughed. After what he had just demonstrated, What could these fragile creatures possibly show that would be impressive? But his curiosity was genuine. Perhaps they had some amusing party tricks. By all means, he said. Admiral Chun gestured to one of her team members, a young man with dark hair who had been operating recording equipment. Lieutenant Park, would you set up the tactical display? Lieutenant Park activated a device that projected a three-dimensional holographic image in the center of the room. The image showed a star system with several planets, space stations, and moving objects representing ships. It looked like a military planning tool. This is a strategic simulation, Admiral Chun explained. We use it for training and planning purposes. It can model various combat scenarios with high accuracy. Would you be willing to participate in a theoretical engagement? Ziegther was intrigued despite himself. What kind of engagement? A standard scenario, Admiral Chun replied. Your forces attacking one of our colonies. We will program in your ship's capabilities as you have described them. You can direct the Vorthak attack using real tactics. We will respond with human defensive strategies. Think of it as a game, if you like. Sub-Commander Veltar leaned close to Ziegther. Sir, is this wise? Should we reveal our tactical methods to them? Ziegther considered this, then shrugged. What harm could it do? They will learn our tactics soon enough when we conquer their world. This might even convince them that resistance is hopeless. The simulation began with a Vorthak fleet approaching a human colony world. Ziegther was impressed by the detail. The holographic ships looked exactly like real Vorthak vessels, complete with accurate weapon systems and defensive capabilities. He could direct them using simple voice commands and hand gestures. He deployed his forces using a classic Vorthak assault pattern. Heavy dreadnoughts approached the planet directly, drawing defensive fire while smaller ships moved to flank the colony's orbital stations. It was a proven strategy that had worked against countless other species. The human response was immediate, but confusing. Instead of meeting the Vorthak ships in direct combat, the human vessels scattered. They fired what appeared to be thousands of small projectiles, then retreated behind the planet's moons and asteroid fields. Are they running away? Veltar asked. It appears so, Ziegther replied. This is typical behavior. Most species realize they cannot match our firepower in direct battle. But then the projectiles reached the Vorthak fleet. They were not weapons at all, but some kind of electronic devices. As they approached the ships, the Vorthak vessels began experiencing system failures. Navigation computers crashed. Weapon targeting systems went offline. Communications between ships became impossible. Interesting approach, Admiral Chun commented quietly. Electronic warfare rather than direct engagement. Ziegther tried to adapt. He ordered his ships to continue the attack despite the system failures, relying on manual controls and visual targeting. Vorthak technology was designed to be robust, and his crews were trained to fight without computer assistance if necessary. The human ships reappeared from behind the moons, but they did not attack the Vorthak vessels directly. Instead, they targeted the space around the Vorthak fleet with some kind of gravitational manipulation technology. The Vorthak ships found themselves pulled off course, unable to maintain formation or approach the planet effectively. As Ziegther watched, his simulated fleet was systematically disabled without the humans ever engaging in direct ship-to-ship combat. The human vessels were smaller and weaker than the Vorthak ships, but they moved with perfect coordination. Every action seemed planned several moves in advance. How are they doing this? Veltar whispered. The human team member who had been taking notes looked up. Adaptive battlefield intelligence, he said matter-of-factly. Our computers analyze enemy tactics in real time and develop countermeasures. The longer a battle continues, the more effective our responses become. Ziegther felt a strange sensation he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. In the simulation, his fleet was not destroyed, but it was completely neutralized. The human forces had made it impossible for the Vorthak ships to accomplish their mission without ever meeting them in the kind of direct confrontation where Vorthak strength would matter. This is only a simulation, he said firmly. Real combat is different. Of course, Admiral Chun agreed. Simulations can only approximate reality, but they are useful for understanding basic principles. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the aftermath of the engagement. Notice that your ships are disabled but not destroyed. Our defensive strategy prioritizes neutralization over annihilation. We find it more effective in the long term. Ziegler stared at the display. Something fundamental was wrong with this picture, but he could not identify what it was. The Vorthek had superior technology, overwhelming physical strength, and 3,000 years of military experience. Yet in this simulation, none of those advantages had mattered. "Run it again," he commanded. "I will use different tactics." Admiral Chun nodded. "Of course." The second simulation began with a more conservative Vorthek approach. Ziegler kept his. Ships in tight formation and advanced slowly, using long-range weapons to suppress human positions before closing for direct assault. The humans responded differently this time, using hit-and-run tactics and coordinated strikes against the Vorthek. Fleet supply lines. The result was the same. The Vorthek forces were outmaneuvered and Commander Ziegler stared at the holographic display showing his defeated fleet. The simulation had ended, but the implications continued to disturb him. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever made Vorthek's strength seem irrelevant. Yet these humans had done exactly that, using tactics he had never encountered before. "I do not understand," he said finally. "Your ships are weaker, your weapons are inferior. How do you achieve victory?" Admiral Chen smiled, but it was not the expression of someone gloating over a defeated enemy. It was the look of a teacher who had successfully explained a difficult concept. "Commander, may I ask you something? In all your conquests, have you ever encountered a species that became stronger after joining your empire?" The question puzzled Ziegler. "What do you mean?" "We do not make conquered species stronger, we rule them." "Exactly," Admiral Chun said. "You defeat them, then control them. Their capabilities remain the same or decrease under your rule, but what if there was a different approach?" She gestured to Lieutenant Park, who activated another display. This one showed a star map of local space with dozens of solar systems, marked in different colors. Ziegler recognized some of them as systems his scouts had surveyed but dismissed as unimportant. "These 17 systems all contain intelligent species," Admiral Chun explained. "Your scouts probably cataloged them as primitive and not worth conquering. Most have populations under 1 billion. None have military forces that could threaten." "A Vorthek ship." "Correct," Ziegler confirmed. "They are irrelevant to the Empire." "We thought differently," Admiral Chun continued. 5 years ago, we made first contact with the Kepler system. The beings there are small, only 3 feet tall, but they have incredible mathematical abilities. They can perform calculations in their heads that our best computers struggle with. She highlighted the Kepler system on the display. Instead of conquering them, we offered them a partnership. We provided them with better communication technology and access to our educational databases. In exchange, they helped us design more efficient navigation systems for our ships. Ziegler frowned. "You gave them technology? That seems dangerous." "It was a risk," Admiral Chun admitted, "but it worked. The Kepler beings became our allies, not our subjects. They chose to help us because we had helped them first." The display shifted to show another system. The Rigel colonies had excellent mining technology but struggled with food production on their rocky worlds. We shared our agricultural knowledge with them. They shared their mining techniques with us. Both species became stronger. Lieutenant Park spoke up. The pattern continued with each new contact. The Centauri group had advanced medical knowledge but primitive computers. The Vega settlements had developed remarkable construction techniques but lacked raw materials. We connected them all. Admiral Chen touched several systems on the display, showing communication lines linking them together. We created a network. Each species contributes what they do best and receives help with their weaknesses. The whole group becomes stronger than any individual part. Ziegler stared at the display. The implications were staggering. "You are saying that these weak species are allied with you?" "More than allied," Admiral Chun replied. They are partners. When your scouts detected our signals and began moving toward Earth, our Kepler friends used their mathematical abilities to calculate your fleet's capabilities. Our Rigel partners provided rare metals for our ship construction. The Centauri group developed new medical treatments for our crews during long space voyages. Sub-Commander Veltar stepped forward. Commander, this could be some kind of trick. These species are too weak to matter in real combat. Admiral Chung turned to face Veltar directly. Sub-Commander, may I ask what you think real combat looks like? Ship against ship, Veltar replied immediately. Warrior against warrior. Strength against strength. That is one kind of combat, Admiral Chun agreed. But what if your enemy refuses to fight that way? What if they make it impossible for you to use your strengths? She activated another simulation. This one showed a Vorthek fleet approaching a human world, but the tactical situation was completely different from the previous demonstrations. The human ships were supported by vessels from multiple species, each contributing different capabilities. The Kepler beings provide tactical calculations that let us predict your movements. Admiral Chun explained as the simulation played. The Rigel miners have created asteroid fields that channel your ships into specific areas. The Centauri medical knowledge lets our crews survive in high-stress combat situations longer than should be possible. In the simulation, the Vorthak fleet found itself surrounded by enemies that seemed to anticipate every move. When they tried to use brute force, their opponents scattered. When they attempted tactical maneuvers, the enemy was always one step ahead. When they focused on one group of ships, attacks came from unexpected directions, but what disturbed Ziegther most was what happened to captured Vorthak vessels in the simulation. Instead of being destroyed, they were disabled and boarded. The crews were taken prisoner, but they were not harmed. Medical teams immediately began treating wounded Vorthak warriors. Translation software began broadcasting surrender terms in perfect Vorthak language. How do you know our language? Ziegther demanded. We learned it during the first simulation, Lieutenant Park replied casually. Our computers analyzed your speech patterns and compared them to linguistic databases provided by our partners. The Kepler beings are excellent at pattern recognition. Ziegther felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. You learned our language in 30 minutes? Basic conversational ability, yes, Admiral Chun confirmed. Full fluency would take several hours. Our network approach applies to knowledge as well as resources. When one species learns something, all species benefit. The simulation continued, showing human forces offering immediate aid to Vorthak survivors. They provided medical treatment using techniques developed by multiple species. They offered food suitable for Vorthak physiology, information gathered by diplomatic contacts with Vorthak border worlds. They even began broadcasting cultural information, showing that they understood Vorthak honor codes and social structures. Stop, Ziegther commanded, and the simulation paused. This is impossible. No species learns this quickly. One species alone could not, Admiral Chun agreed. But 17 species working together? When you combine Kepler mathematical ability, Rigel analytical skills, Centauri medical knowledge, human linguistic adaptation, and data from 14 other civilizations, learning becomes much faster. She gestured to her team. Every human you see here has been enhanced by knowledge from our partners. Lieutenant Park's navigation skills were improved by Kepler training. Dr. Wilson's medical knowledge includes Centauri techniques. My own tactical understanding incorporates lessons learned from species across dozens of worlds. Ziegther was beginning to understand something that frightened him more than any weapon. You do not just defeat enemies, you convert them. We offer them a choice. Admiral Chen corrected. Join our network and become stronger, or remain isolated and become weaker relative to everyone else. Most species choose to join once they understand the benefits. And if they refuse, Admiral Chun's expression became serious, then they remain free to make their own choices. We do not force anyone to join us. But we also do not allow them to attack our partners or disrupt the network. Sub-Commander Veltar spoke quietly to Ziegther. Sir, if this is true, then we are not facing just humans. We are facing a coalition of species that shares knowledge and resources? Correct, Admiral, Chun said, having overheard. And that coalition grows stronger every time we encounter a new species. Your empire has conquered thousands of worlds, but you have gained nothing but territory and subjects. Our network has contacted 17 species and gained 17 sets of unique capabilities. Ziegler tried to process this information. The Vorthic Empire was vast and powerful, but it was also rigid. Each conquered world contributed resources and labor, but the Vorthak had never been interested in learning from other species. They imposed their own culture and technology everywhere they went. You are suggesting that weakness can become strength through cooperation, he said slowly. Not weakness becoming strength, Admiral Chun replied. Different kinds of strength combining to create something greater. Every species has evolved unique capabilities. The Vorthek developed incredible physical power. Humans developed adaptability and social cooperation. The Kepler beings developed mathematical intuition. Each strength is valuable, but together they are much more powerful than separately. She activated one final display, showing the economic and technological output of the human network compared to individual species' performance. The numbers were dramatic. Species that had joined the network showed improvement in every measurable category within months of contact. This is why we wanted to meet with you, Commander, Admiral Chun continued. The Vorthic Empire represents the greatest concentration of physical power in the galaxy. Imagine what could be accomplished if that power was used to build rather than conquer. If Vorthic strength was combined with human adaptability, Kepler mathematics, Rigel engineering, and Centauri medicine. The journey back to Vorthak space took 7 days. Commander Ziegler spent most of that time in his quarters, thinking about what Admiral Chun had shown him. The meeting had ended with no agreement, but also no declaration of war. The humans had simply asked him to consider their offer and discuss it. With his superiors, Sub-Commander Veltar entered his quarters on the 4th day. She moved carefully as if approaching a dangerous animal. Sir, the crew is asking questions. They want to know what we learned from the humans. Ziegler looked up from the reports he had been reading. What do you tell them? That we are gathering intelligence on a potential enemy, Veltar replied. But sir, some of the officers who were present at the meeting are talking. They say the humans defeated our fleet in every simulation. They say these creatures have allies we knew nothing about. The simulations were just theoretical exercises, Ziegler said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, sir, Veltar agreed. But they were very detailed, and the humans seemed confident that their theories would work in reality. Ziegler set down his reports. They contained information his computers had gathered during the meeting with the humans. Translation matrices for 17 different languages. Technical specifications for ships that used unfamiliar design principles. Most disturbing of all, detailed cultural analyses of Vorthak society that showed an understanding of their people. That should have taken decades to develop. Veltar, in your opinion, could we defeat these humans in direct combat? Sub-Commander Veltar considered the question carefully. In ship-to-ship battle, yes, our vessels are superior. In ground combat, absolutely. No human warrior could stand against a Vorthak in personal combat. But what if they refuse to fight us directly? Then the battle would become more complicated, Veltar admitted. Their electronic warfare capabilities could disrupt our systems. Their tactical coordination might give them advantages we have not encountered before. Ziegler nodded slowly. Send a message to High Command. Tell them we need to convene the War Council immediately upon our return. When they reached the Vorthak homeworld, Ziegler was surprised to find that news of the human encounter had already spread throughout the capital. Somehow, word had leaked about the meeting and the simulation results. The reaction was exactly what he had expected, outrage and disbelief. The War Council met in the Great Chamber, a massive hall carved from a single crystal mountain. 12 high commanders sat in chairs that had been shaped from the bones of creatures from their first conquered world. At the head of the chamber sat Supreme Commander Thakmur, oldest and strongest of all Vorthak, ruler of the Empire for over 1,000 years. Commander Ziegther, Thakmur's voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. You have returned from the Outer Rim with disturbing reports. Explain these humans to us. Ziegther stood and activated a holographic display. The images from his meeting with Admiral Chun appeared in the center of the chamber. He began with the basic facts, human physical characteristics, their technological level, their apparent weakness compared to Vorthak capabilities. They sound like typical prey species, commented High Commander Rakanol. Why was a meeting necessary? Why not simply conquer them immediately? Because they demonstrated capabilities that were unexpected, Ziegther replied. He showed the simulation results, the tactical defeats, the evidence of the Human Alliance network. The reaction was immediate and loud. Several high commanders began shouting at once. Some declared the simulations meaningless. Others demanded immediate war to crush these upstart creatures. A few suggested that Ziegther had been deceived by clever trickery. Supreme Commander Thakmur raised his hand for silence. These humans claim they can defeat Vorthak forces through superior tactics and cooperation with other species. Do you believe this is true? Ziegther chose his words carefully. I believe they represent a different approach to conflict than we have encountered before. Their methods are unfamiliar, but they appear to be effective against traditional Vorthak strategies. Then we will develop new strategies, High Commander Velkoth declared. The Vorthak have adapted before. We can adapt again. What troubles me, Ziegther continued, is their offer of alliance. They did not ask us to surrender. They asked us to join them. The chamber erupted again. The concept of Vorthak joining anyone was almost incomprehensible. For 3,000 years, other species had joined the Vorthak Empire. The idea of the Empire joining something else was revolutionary. High Commander Morgeth stood up, her ancient armor creaking with the movement. Commander Ziegther, are you suggesting we should consider this human proposal? I am suggesting we should understand what we are facing before we make decisions, Ziegther replied. These humans have created something new, a network of species that voluntarily cooperate and share their strengths. Each member becomes more powerful than they were alone. Weakness seeking strength through numbers, High Commander Rakanol dismissed. The Vorthak do not need help from inferior species. But Supreme Commander Thakmur was studying the holographic displays with interest. Show me these allied species again, he commanded. Ziegther displayed the star map showing the human network. 17 species across as many systems. Each contributes different capabilities. The humans provide coordination and adaptation. The Kepler beings offer mathematical analysis. The Rigel colonies supply advanced mining and manufacturing. And what do they accomplish together that they could not achieve separately? Thakmur asked. According to their data, everything, Ziegther replied. Faster technological development? More efficient resource utilization, better solutions to complex problems. Each species learns from all the others. High Commander Velkoth laughed harshly. Pretty words. But when real war comes, only strength matters. These creatures will learn this when we crush their alliance. Perhaps, Ziegther said quietly. But what if we are wrong? What if their way is actually more effective than ours? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For a long moment, none of the high commanders spoke. The idea that the Vorthak way might not be the best way was almost unthinkable. Finally, Supreme Commander Thakmur broke the silence. What exactly are these humans offering us? Partnership, Ziegther replied. Equal membership in their network. They want to combine Vorthak's strength with human adaptability and the abilities of their other allies. And in exchange, we would stop conquering new worlds. We would work with other species instead of ruling them. We would contribute our abilities to collective projects instead of using them for individual glory. The chamber exploded in outrage. Half the high commanders were on their feet, shouting about honor and tradition. The other half sat in stunned silence, trying to process the implications. High Commander Rakanol's voice rose above the others. This is madness. The Vorthak do not serve others. We rule. It is our nature. But what if our nature is limiting us? Ziegler asked. What if there are things we could accomplish through cooperation that we cannot achieve through conquest? Supreme Commander Thakmer studied Ziegler for a long moment. You have been influenced by these humans. You begin to think like them instead of like a Vorthak? Perhaps, Ziegler admitted. But perhaps that is not entirely a bad thing. The humans showed me something I had never seen before, species that became stronger after contact with others. Every world we conquer becomes weaker under our rule. Every world they contact becomes stronger through cooperation. High Commander Mordjith spoke thoughtfully. There is wisdom in understanding one's enemies, but these humans may be more dangerous than they appear. Their ideas could spread through our empire if we are not careful. You mean they could convince other conquered species to rebel? High Commander Velkoth asked. Worse, Mordjith replied. They could convince those species that there is an alternative to Vorthak rule. Hope is more dangerous than any weapon. Supreme. Commander Thakmer stood slowly, his massive frame dominating the chamber. We will divide our response. Half the fleet will prepare for immediate war against these humans and their allies. We will crush this network before it can grow larger. Murmurs of approval came from several high commanders. However, Thakmer continued, a smaller force will attempt to test their claims. We will see if this cooperation actually works as they suggest. High Commander Rakanel objected immediately. Supreme Commander, surely you do not mean to negotiate with these creatures? I mean to understand them, Thakmer replied firmly. If they are merely clever weaklings, we will destroy them easily. But if they represent something genuinely new, we must know exactly what we are fighting. He turned to Ziegler. You will lead the test mission. Take a small fleet and attempt to evaluate these human claims about cooperation and alliance. Meanwhile, the main battle fleet will prepare for total war. And if I find that their methods actually work? Ziegler asked Supreme. Commander Thakmer's expression was unreadable. Then we will face a choice that will determine the future of our empire. Either we adapt to this new galaxy or we destroy everything that threatens our traditional way of life. The War Council ended with the Vorthak Empire committed to two opposing courses of action. Half would prepare for the greatest war in their history. The other half would explore the possibility that war itself. 6 months later, two Vorthak fleets moved toward human space. The first was a massive war fleet led by High Commander Rakanel, with over 300 ships carrying the most powerful weapons in the Empire. The second was a much smaller group, led by Commander Ziegler, with only 12 ships and a crew of volunteers who wanted to test the human ideas about cooperation. Ziegler's mission had taken him to 3 systems on the edge of human space. What he found there changed everything he thought he knew. About strength and power, the first system contained the Kepler beings, the small mathematical creatures the humans had described. Ziegler expected to find a primitive world under human control. Instead, he discovered a thriving civilization that had grown dramatically since joining the human network. The Kepler beings had used human communication technology to connect with mathematics experts from 16 other species. Together, they had solved engineering problems that had puzzled scientists for centuries. More surprising was how they treated the Vorthak visitors. The Kepler beings showed no fear of the massive crystal warriors. They were genuinely excited to meet a new species and immediately began asking questions about Vorthak science and culture. Within hours, they had developed new mathematical models for crystal growth that could improve Vorthak armor technology. They want to help us, Sub-Commander Veltar observed in amazement. They see our strength as something they can enhance, not something that threatens them. The second system showed Ziegler something even more remarkable. A joint construction project involving 6 different species was building a space station, larger than anything in the Vorthak Empire. Human coordination, Rigel mining expertise, Centauri medical facilities, Kepler mathematical planning, and technologies from other worlds were all combined in a single massive structure. But what impressed Ziegler most was seeing members of different species working side by side. A human engineer would discuss problems with a Rigel mining specialist, then implement solutions suggested by a Kepler mathematician. Each species contributed their best abilities while learning from all the others. "This is not conquest," Valtar said quietly as they watched the construction through their ship's viewports. "This is something entirely different." The third system changed Ziegler's understanding completely. They arrived to find Admiral Chun waiting for them with a mixed fleet of ships from the entire Human Alliance network. But these were not warships. They were research vessels, medical ships, and construction platforms. "Welcome back, Commander," Admiral Chun greeted him over the communication channel. "We heard about your mission. Would you like to see what we have been working on?" What they had been working on was a demonstration specifically designed for the Vorthek. Using Kepler mathematical models and Rigel engineering techniques, the Human Alliance had built a prototype crystal enhancement chamber. The device could strengthen Vorthek armor beyond anything their own technology could achieve. "We studied the armor fragments you left at our meeting station," Admiral Chun explained as Ziegler examined the chamber. "Our Kepler friends calculated optimal crystal growth patterns. The Rigel engineers developed tools that could work with your materials. The Centauri provided medical knowledge about how enhanced armor might affect Vorthek physiology. Sub-Commander Veltar volunteered to test the device. After 30 minutes in the enhancement chamber, her armor was noticeably stronger and more flexible. Tests showed it could now resist weapons that would have damaged it before. "You have improved Vorthek technology," Ziegler said in wonder. "In 6 months, you have advanced our armor beyond what we accomplished in centuries." 17 species working together can accomplish remarkable things, Admiral Chun replied. "Imagine what we could do with 18 species." But even as Ziegler experienced these revelations, he knew that High Commander Rakanal's warfleet was approaching human space. The largest Vorthek military force in history was preparing to destroy everything Ziegler had just learned to admire. The war began 3 weeks later. Rakanal's fleet entered the Sol system expecting to face desperate human resistance. Instead, they found something that violated every principle of Vorthek military doctrine. The Human Alliance did not meet the Vorthek fleet in direct battle. Their ships scattered throughout the solar system, using tactics that made traditional combat impossible. Electronic warfare systems disabled Vorthek targeting computers. Gravitational manipulation weapons disrupted fleet formations. Coordinated strikes from multiple directions confused Vorthek commanders, who were trained to fight single opponents. But the most disturbing aspect of the battle was what happened to damaged Vorthek ships. Instead of being destroyed, they were captured and boarded by mixed crews from the Human Alliance. The boarding parties included Vorthak warriors, members of Ziegler's exploration mission, who had joined the Alliance voluntarily. These Vorthak converts spoke to their former comrades in their own language, explaining the Alliance offer. They provided medical aid to wounded warriors. They showed that Vorthak could work alongside other species without losing their identity or strength. High Commander Rakanal watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by enemies who refused to fight like proper warriors. Worse, he watched his own crews beginning to question their mission as they received unexpected mercy from their opponents. The turning point came when Rakanal's flagship was surrounded by Alliance vessels. His ship was disabled but not destroyed. His crew was captured but not harmed. And then Admiral Chun appeared on his bridge, accompanied by Ziegler and 2 Vorthek warriors who now wore the insignia of the Human Alliance. "High Commander," Admiral Chun said respectfully, "we offer you the same choice we offer everyone. Join us and become stronger, or remain free to choose your own path." Rakanal stared at Ziegler in fury. "You have betrayed your own species." "I have found a better way for our species," Ziegler replied calmly. "Rakanal, look around you. Your fleet is defeated, but your warriors are alive. Your ships are captured, but they are not destroyed. We could repair them and return them to you, if you choose to leave." "Why?" Rakanal demanded. Why do you not simply destroy us and take our territory? Admiral Chun answered. Because destroying you would make the galaxy weaker. We prefer to make the galaxy stronger. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of local space. The Human Alliance Network had grown to include 23 species. Each system showed improved technology, better living conditions, and increased cooperation with neighboring worlds. Your empire has conquered thousands of worlds, Admiral Chun continued. But has any conquered world ever become stronger under Vorthek rule? Has any subject species ever thanked you for conquering them? Rakanol could not answer because the answer was obvious. Conquered worlds existed to serve the Empire, not to benefit from it. We offer you something different, Admiral Chun said. A galaxy where every species contributes their best abilities and benefits from everyone else's strengths. Where Vorthak power protects and builds instead of conquering and destroying. Over the following days, High Commander Rakanol watched his crews interact with Alliance members. He saw Vorthak warriors working alongside humans to repair damaged ships. He watched Kepler beings teach Vorthak scientists new mathematical concepts. He observed Centauri medics treating Vorthak injuries with techniques that were more advanced than anything in the Empire. Most importantly, he saw that the Vorthak who had joined the Alliance had not become weaker. They had become stronger, more capable, more respected than they had ever been as conquerors. The final decision came when news arrived from Vorthak space. Other species throughout the Empire had learned about the Human Alliance. Some were demanding the same cooperation and respect that Alliance members enjoyed. Others were actively rebelling against Vorthak rule, hoping to join the growing network of free species. Supreme Commander Thakemer himself arrived with a small fleet, not to continue the war but to see these humans for himself. The ancient leader of the Vorthak Empire spent 3 days in discussions with Admiral Chun and the Alliance Council. On the 4th day, he made his announcement to both fleets. The Vorthak Empire ends today, Thakemer declared. Not through defeat, but through evolution. We have learned that true strength comes not from ruling others, but from helping others become strong. The transformation was not immediate or complete. Many Vorthak chose to remain independent rather than join the Alliance. Some formed their own smaller groups, trying to maintain the old ways on a reduced scale. But the Empires are conquering. Force was finished. Those Vorthak who joined the Alliance discovered abilities they had never known they possessed. Their incredible strength became a tool for construction rather than destruction. Their resilience allowed them to work in environments where other species could not survive. Their military experience helped design defensive systems that protected Alliance worlds from remaining threats. Within 2 years, the galaxy had changed completely. The Alliance network included over 50 species, each contributing unique capabilities to the collective good. Trade routes connected systems that had never communicated before. Scientific knowledge advanced faster than ever as species shared their discoveries freely. The massive silver ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They came without warning, blocking out the sun over major cities across the globe. Each ship was bigger than a mountain, casting shadows that stretched for miles. People stopped on streets and pointed up at the sky. Children pressed their faces against school windows. News reporters scrambled to get cameras running. Commander Zexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue planet below. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds. This was just another day at work for him. Begin the standard scan, he told his crew. I want a full report on this species within the hour. The scanner officer's tentacles moved quickly over the control panel. Data flowed across the screens. Zexthal watched the numbers and smiled. This would be easy. Sir, the scan is complete, the officer reported. The species calls themselves humans. They are Category 7 inferior, Zexthal nodded. Category 7 was the lowest rating the Empire gave to intelligent species. It meant they were barely worth conquering, but the Empire took every world, even the worthless ones. Tell me about them, Zexthal said. The scanner officer read from his screen. They live only about 80 of their years, sir, very short lives. They are weak creatures. Their bones break easily. They have poor eyesight. No natural weapons like claws or venom. They cannot even see in the dark. What about their technology? Zexthel asked. Primitive chemical rockets, sir? They have only just reached their own. Moon. Their weapons are simple explosives and metal projectiles. They have no energy shields, no faster-than-light travel. They are at least 1,000 years behind us. Zexthel laughed. And their society? Chaotic, sir? They are divided into nearly 200 separate groups they call nations. These nations fight each other constantly. They cannot agree on anything. They speak hundreds of different languages. They follow different religions. Their political systems are all different. They are incapable of unity. Perfect, Zexthel said. Send the standard surrender message. This should be over by tomorrow. The message was broadcast to every communication device on Earth. It appeared on television screens, radio broadcasts, and computer monitors. The message was simple and direct, translated into all major human languages. Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the Galactic Empire. We have studied your species and found you lacking in all measures of civilization. Your technology is primitive. Your society is chaotic. Your biology is weak. However, the Empire is merciful. We offer you terms of surrender. Submit to imperial rule, and you will be allowed to continue existing as a client species. You will be given simple tasks suited to your limited abilities. You will be fed and housed. You will be protected from yourselves and others. You have 24 hours to respond with your complete and unconditional surrender. Failure to surrender will result in pacification by force. This is the only warning you will receive. The message ended. Across Earth, people stared at their screens in shock. In the White House, the president called an emergency meeting. In the Kremlin, the Russian leader gathered his advisors. In Beijing, the Chinese premier convened the Politburo. In London, the Prime Minister summoned Parliament. Similar scenes played out in every capital city on Earth, but something unexpected happened. Instead of panic and chaos, the world's leaders began talking to each other. Phone calls were made, video conferences were arranged, emergency sessions were called at the United Nations. On his ship, Zexthel waited for the surrender message. He had conquered 47 worlds in his career. He knew how this worked. First came the panic. Then came desperate attempts to hide or fight. Then came the begging and pleading. Finally came the surrender. It always happened the same way. His communication officer approached him. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Already? Zexthel was surprised. They are surrendering. Quickly, even for a Category 7 species. Actually, sir, they are not surrendering. They are requesting a formal diplomatic meeting. Zexthel's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. A what? They want to meet with you, sir, to discuss terms. They say they need time to consider your offer properly. Zexthel had never heard of such a thing. Species either surrendered immediately or fought uselessly and then surrendered. Nobody asked for meetings. What exactly did they say? He asked. The communication officer read from his screen. They say they represent something called the United Nations of Earth. They acknowledge receipt of our message. They say they appreciate our offer but need time to discuss it properly with all human governments. They request a diplomatic meeting within 72 hours to discuss terms and conditions. Zexthel was quiet for a long moment. This was not in the manual. He had studied the standard imperial procedures for conquest. There was no section on diplomatic meetings with inferior species. Sir, his tactical officer said, perhaps they are trying to buy time to prepare defenses. Zexthel considered this. What defenses could they possibly prepare? Their weapons cannot even scratch our hull. Their fastest ships would take months to reach us. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no quantum processors. They are using radio waves to communicate for the Empire's sake. Then what do they want? The tactical officer asked. I think, Zexthel said slowly, they do not understand the situation. They think this is some kind of negotiation. They think they have a choice in the matter, the bridge crew laughed. The idea was absurd. No species had ever negotiated with. The Empire decided what happened. The Empire had the biggest ships and the most advanced weapons. The Empire had conquered half the galaxy. Sir, the scanner officer said, our long-range sensors are detecting increased activity on the planet. There are many more radio transmissions than usual. Their communication networks are very busy. They are probably arguing among themselves. Zexel said, remember, they are chaotic and divided. They cannot agree on anything. They are probably fighting about whether to surrender or not. But on Earth, something very different was happening. In meeting rooms and conference halls around the world, the greatest minds humanity had ever produced were working together. Scientists, engineers, military leaders, and diplomats were sharing information at a rate never seen before. Dr. Sarah Chun, a physicist at MIT, was on a video call with colleagues in 12 countries. The energy readings from their ships are incredible, she said, but look at the patterns. There are gaps in their defensive coverage. General Morrison from the Pentagon was talking to his counterparts in Russia, China, and NATO countries. They are assuming we will fight like everyone else has fought them, he said, but we know how everyone else fought them. We can see the patterns. In Geneva, the UN Secretary General was coordinating with world leaders. We need to buy time. She said, every hour we delay gives our people more time to prepare. The Empire's own databases had been their downfall. Every species they had conquered had been studied and catalogued. The Empire kept detailed records of every battle, every strategy, every failure. They had broadcast these records throughout the galaxy as proof of their power, but humans had been listening. Human radio telescopes had been picking up Imperial transmissions for decades. Human computers had been analyzing Imperial tactics. And technology. The Empire thought they were facing a primitive, divided species. But they were actually facing a species that had been studying them for years. A species that had learned from the mistakes of every other world the Empire had conquered. On his ship, Zexthel made his decision. We will meet with them, he said. It will be amusing to see what they think they can negotiate. After we explain reality to them, they will surrender properly. He had no idea that he was about to walk into the most carefully planned trap in galactic history. The meeting took place in the United Nations building in New York. Commander Zexthel had agreed to come down to the planet with a small diplomatic team. He thought it would be quick and simple. He would explain how weak humans were, and they would surrender immediately. The UN Assembly Hall was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. Cameras from around the world were filming everything. Zexthel walked to the center of the room with his 3 assistants. He stood, nearly 8 feet tall, his gray skin gleaming under the lights. His forearms moved as he spoke, and his voice was deep and commanding. Humans of Earth, he began, I am Commander Zexthel of the Galactic Empire. I have come to explain your situation so there will be no confusion. The UN Secretary-General Maria Santos stood at the podium facing him. We welcome you, Commander. We are ready to listen. Zexthel activated a holographic projector. Images appeared in the air above the assembly hall. The first image showed a human skeleton next to skeletons from other species the Empire had conquered. Let us begin with biology, Zexthel said. Your bones are made of calcium carbonate, one of the weakest structural materials in the galaxy. The average human bone can be broken with only 200 pounds of pressure. Compare this to the Kralliks, species whose bones required 3,000 pounds of pressure to break. Yet we conquered them in 4 days. He gestured to another image. Your muscles are inefficient protein fibers. The strongest human can lift perhaps 3 times their body weight. The Therian warriors could lift 20 times their body weight. They also fell to the Empire. More images appeared. Your eyes can only see a tiny portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. You cannot see ultraviolet or infrared light. You cannot see in darkness. The Zephyrians had perfect vision across 12 spectrums and could see clearly in complete darkness. This did not save them. Secretary-General Santos listened carefully. She took notes. Around the hall, other delegates were also writing down. Everything, Zexthal said. Your hearing is limited to a narrow range of frequencies, Zexthal continued. Your sense of smell is almost non-existent compared to other species. You have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no poison, no stingers. You cannot even run very fast. Dr. James Peterson, the head of human delegation, raised his hand. These are very interesting facts, Commander. Please continue. Zexthal was pleased. The humans were accepting their inferiority without argument. This was going better than expected. Now, let us discuss your technology, he said. The hologram changed to show human rockets and spaceships. You use chemical combustion for propulsion. This is the most primitive form of space travel possible. Your fastest spacecraft would take you 40,000 years to reach the nearest star. He showed images of human weapons. Your military uses gunpowder explosives and metal projectiles. You have discovered nuclear fusion, but you use it to make crude bombs instead of proper energy weapons. Your computers are electronic rather than quantum. Your communications rely on radio waves, which are easily intercepted and blocked. General Harrison from the U.S. military leaned forward. How do your ships travel between stars, Commander? We use quantum tunneling drives, Zexthal said proudly. We can cross the galaxy in weeks instead of millennia. We have plasma weapons. That can destroy mountains. Our shields can deflect any attack. Our computers can calculate 1 trillion possibilities in microseconds. The general nodded and wrote more notes. Fascinating. Please tell us more. Zexthal was enjoying himself. These humans were so eager to learn about their superiors. He activated new images showing human society. Your civilization is chaotic and inefficient, he said. You are divided into 195 separate nations. These nations constantly fight each other over resources, territory, and beliefs. In the last century alone, you have fought 2 major global wars and countless smaller conflicts. The hologram showed a map of Earth with different colored regions. You speak over 7,000 different languages. You follow hundreds of different religions. Your political systems are all different. Some are democracies, some are dictatorships, some are monarchies. You cannot agree on simple things like how to measure distance or temperature. Dr. Lisa Wong from the Chinese delegation spoke up. How does the Empire maintain unity across so many worlds? Simple, Zexthal replied. One government, one language. One set of laws, one way of thinking. When we conquer a species, we eliminate their inefficient diversity. Everyone follows imperial standards. Everyone serves the Empire. It is much more efficient. The human delegates exchanged glances. More notes were written. Your economic systems are also chaotic, Zexthal continued. You use something called money instead of logical resource distribution. Some humans have vast wealth while others have nothing. This creates constant conflict and inefficiency. The Empire assigns each being a role based on their abilities and provides what they need. No waste, no inequality, no conflict. Ambassador Rodriguez from Brazil asked, how do you determine what role each being should have? Through scientific testing, Zexthal said. We measure intelligence, physical capabilities, psychological profiles, and genetic potential. Each being is assigned the role they are best suited for. Humans would likely be assigned to simple manual labor or basic manufacturing. You're emotional. Instability makes you unsuitable for complex tasks. The humans in the assembly hall remained calm and quiet. They continued taking notes. Zexthal found this encouraging. They were accepting their fate without resistance. Let me show you examples of species that thought they could resist, he said. The hologram displayed images of destroyed cities and conquered worlds. The Altarians had technology almost as advanced as ours. They lasted 6 months. The vegan Confederacy had a unified government spanning 12 star systems. They fell in 3 weeks. The Silicon Masters were pure artificial intelligence with no biological weaknesses. They were defeated in 5 days. He paused for effect. Each of these species made the same mistake. They thought they were special. They thought they could Find a way to defeat the Empire. They were wrong. Secretary General Santos stood up. Commander, we appreciate you sharing this information with us. It is very educational. We would like to request more time to discuss these facts with all human governments. How much time? Zexthel asked. 1 week, she said. Zexthel laughed. Impossible. The Empire does not wait. You have already had 3 days. You will surrender today, or we will begin pacification tomorrow. Dr. Peterson stood up. Commander, you have shown us many impressive facts about Imperial technology and past conquests. But you have also told us that the Empire prefers to avoid unnecessary destruction. Surely 1 week is a small price to pay for a peaceful surrender rather than having to damage valuable infrastructure and workers. Zexthel considered this. The human made a good point. Damaged planets were less useful to the Empire. And humans seemed to be accepting their fate. They were not making threats or impossible demands. They just wanted time to organize their surrender properly. Very well, he said, 1 week. But understand this, the Empire's patience has limits. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness. Of course not, Commander, Secretary General Santos said. We understand completely. As the meeting ended, Zexthel felt satisfied. The humans had listened to every word about their inferiority. They had asked intelligent questions about Imperial technology and methods. They had not argued or made ridiculous claims about defeating the Empire. They were behaving exactly as a defeated species should behave. What Zexthel did not know was that every word he had spoken was being analyzed by teams of human scientists and strategists around the world. Every detail about Imperial technology was being studied. Every weakness in past conquests was being examined. Every assumption the Empire made about human behavior was being carefully noted. The humans had not been accepting their fate. They had been gathering intelligence. As the Imperial delegation returned to their ships, Dr. Peterson turned to Secretary General Santos. Did you get everything? Every word, she replied. Our teams are already working on it. Good, Peterson said. Now we know exactly what they think of us. And we know exactly how wrong they are. Around the world, the real work was beginning. In laboratories and military bases, in universities and research centers, humanity was preparing to prove that everything the Empire believed about them was completely and utterly false. Commander Zexthel was getting impatient. 5 days had passed since the diplomatic meeting, and the humans still had not surrendered. They kept sending messages asking for more time and requesting additional meetings. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. Sir, his communication officer reported, we are receiving another transmission from the planet. Let me guess, Zexthel said with annoyance. They want another extension. Actually, no, sir. They are asking if we would be willing to demonstrate our superior technology. They say it would help convince the remaining holdout nations to surrender. Zexthel was surprised. This was more reasonable. Sometimes inferior species needed to see imperial power before they would accept reality. What kind of demonstration do they want? They are asking us to disable some of their old satellites, sir. They say it would show our precision and technological superiority without harming anyone. This made sense to Zexthel. It was a smart request from the humans. They understood that some of their people needed proof of imperial power. Very well. Target their obsolete satellites. Make it precise and clean. The Imperial fleet moved into position. Energy beams lanced out from the ships, striking old communication satellites with perfect accuracy. Each satellite was destroyed instantly, vaporized by controlled plasma bursts. The demonstrations were visible from Earth as brief flashes of light in the sky. What Zexthel did not know was that humans had been watching very carefully. Every energy beam was tracked by thousands of amateur astronomers with telescopes. Military radar stations recorded the exact frequencies and power levels. Scientists measured the energy signatures and analyzed the beam patterns. Dr. Sarah Chun was in a laboratory at MIT studying the data with her team. Look at this, she said, pointing at her computer screen. Their plasma beams have a very specific frequency signature. And see this pattern here? There's a 2-second charging delay between shots. That's not all, said Dr. Kumar from the Indian Space Research Organization, speaking through a video link. Our radar shows their ships have to rotate slightly to target different locations. Their weapons are fixed mount, not turret-based. General Morrison was in the Pentagon War Room, coordinating with military leaders from around the world. We're learning more about their capabilities every hour, he told the Joint Chiefs. They're powerful, but they're not invincible. They have patterns and limitations. Meanwhile, Zextel decided to increase the pressure on the humans. He ordered his ships to create atmospheric disturbances over major cities. The Imperial vessels used gravity manipulators to generate severe thunderstorms and high winds. The message was clear: surrender now, or face worse consequences. The storm struck New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other cities simultaneously. Rain fell in torrents. Lightning cracked across the sky. Winds howled through the streets. It was an impressive display of imperial power that should have terrified the humans into immediate surrender, but something unexpected happened. Instead of panic and chaos, the storms revealed something the Empire had never seen before. Every human with a camera phone began recording. Every person with internet access began sharing information. The storm data was uploaded to global networks within minutes. Sir, the Imperial scanner officer reported with confusion, the humans are not responding as expected to our demonstration. What do you mean? Zextel asked. They are not hiding or panicking, sir. They are studying us. Our sensors detect millions of electronic devices pointed at our ships. They are recording everything we do. Zextel laughed. Let them record. What good will it do them? They are seeing our superiority. This should make them surrender faster. But the scanner officer looked worried. Sir, there is something else. Their global communication network has become extremely active. Data is flowing between their nations at unprecedented rates. They are coordinating on a scale we have never observed. In any species, impossible, Zextel said. They are chaotic and divided. They cannot coordinate anything properly. The data suggests otherwise, sir. Every nation on the planet is sharing information. Their scientists are working together across all political boundaries. Even nations that are normally enemies are cooperating. This troubled Zextel. The Empire's research had shown that humans were incapable of global unity. They were supposed to be arguing among themselves about whether to surrender. Instead, they seem to be working together. What are they coordinating? He asked. Unknown, sir. Their encryption methods are more sophisticated than we expected. We can see the data flow but cannot read the content. Dr. Peterson was in a secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps, coordinating the global response with leaders from every major nation. Banks of computers were processing data from around the world. Scientists, engineers, and military experts were working together in ways that had never happened before in human history. The storm analysis is complete, reported Dr. Yamamoto from Japan. Their gravity manipulators work by creating localized space-time distortions. We've mapped the energy patterns and identified the source points on their ships. Excellent, Peterson said. What about their movement patterns? General Petrov from Russia spoke up through the video link. Their ships maintain fixed positions relative to each other. They move as a formation, not as individual units. This suggests their coordination systems have limitations. And their scanning capabilities? Peterson asked. Sophisticated but focused, replied Dr. Okafor from Nigeria. They can scan deep into our planet, but only in narrow beams. They cannot monitor everything at once. Around the world, humanity was working with a unity and efficiency that would have shocked the Empire if they had understood what was happening. The Internet, which the Empire had dismissed as a primitive communication system, had become the nervous system of a global coordination effort. In hidden facilities and research centers, human scientists were reverse engineering imperial technology. From the demonstrations, In military bases, strategists were developing new tactics based on observed Imperial weaknesses. In manufacturing plants, workers were building new equipment designed specifically to counter Imperial advantages. The Empire had made a critical error. They had assumed that human disunity was permanent and unchangeable. They had not considered that an external threat might unite humanity in ways that nothing else ever could. Zexthel was becoming concerned. His advisors were reporting anomalies that did not match any previous conquest. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "our extended scans are detecting unusual activity on the planet's surface." "What kind of activity?" "Manufacturing, sir. Large-scale production in facilities we did not detect before. They appear to be building something, but our scans cannot penetrate their new shielding." "Shielding?" Zexthel was alarmed. "They do not have shielding technology." "They do now, sir. It appears to be a hybrid of their existing materials science and principles derived from our own demonstrations." This was impossible. No species had ever reverse-engineered Imperial technology so quickly. The Empire's scientists had assured him that human brains were too simple to understand advanced physics. "How long have they been working on this?" he demanded. "Based on energy consumption patterns, they began large-scale projects immediately after our first demonstration, sir. They have been using our own shows of force to study our technology." Zexthel felt a chill of worry. "Send another message to their leaders. Tell them their time is up. They must surrender immediately." The message was sent, but the human response was not what he expected. Instead of surrender, the humans sent a polite reply asking for just one more day to complete their preparations for the surrender ceremony. They said they wanted to do it properly, with representatives from every nation present. "They are stalling," Zexthel told his officers. "But what are they stalling for? They cannot possibly think they can fight us?" His science officer, who had been quietly analyzing data, spoke up. "Sir, I am detecting some concerning patterns in their behavior." "Explain." "Every species we have conquered followed predictable patterns when faced with superior force. First, panic, then desperate attempts at resistance, then acceptance of defeat. But humans are not following these patterns at all. What are they doing instead? They appear to be learning, sir. Every demonstration we make, every piece of information we provide, they absorb and analyze. Their response is not emotional as we expected, it is ... systematic." Zexthel was quiet for a long moment. Something was wrong here. The humans were not behaving like any species the Empire had encountered before. They were not giving up, but they were not fighting either. They were doing something else entirely. "Sir," the communication officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the human leaders. Put it through." Secretary General Santos appeared on the screen. She looked calm and confident. "Commander Zexthel, we have completed our preparations. We are ready to give you our final answer tomorrow at noon Earth time." "Your final answer had better be complete surrender," Zexthel warned. Santos smiled slightly. "Oh, it will be final, Commander. I can promise you that." The transmission ended. Zexthel stared at the blank screen, feeling uneasy. Something in the human leader's tone had been wrong. She had sounded too confident, too calm. She had sounded like someone who knew something he did. Commander Zexthel waited for noon to arrive. His fleet was in perfect formation above Earth, ready to begin the pacification bombardment if the humans refused to surrender. He had done this many times before. By the end of the day, Earth would be another Imperial colony. At exactly noon Earth time, Secretary General Santos appeared on the communication screen. She was standing in what looked like the same UN assembly hall where they had first met, but something was different. Behind her, instead of the usual mix of worried human faces, Zexthel saw confident smiles and calm expressions. "Commander Zexthel," Santos began, "we have reached our decision regarding your generous offer of surrender." "Finally," Zexthel muttered. "And what is your decision?" Santos looked directly into the camera. "We respectfully decline." Zexthel blinked his 4 eyes in surprise. "You what?" "We decline your offer, Commander." Earth will not surrender to the Galactic Empire. For a moment, Zextel was speechless. No species had ever simply declined imperial conquest. They fought and lost, or they surrendered immediately. Nobody just said, "No, you do not understand," he said slowly. "This is not a negotiation. You cannot decline. You will surrender, or you will be destroyed." "Actually, Commander," Santos replied with a smile, "I think you are the one who does not understand. You see, we have been very busy this past week. We took your advice and studied the superior imperial technology. We learned quite a lot." "Impossible," Zextel snapped. "Your primitive brains cannot comprehend our technology." "Perhaps you should look outside your ship," Santos suggested. Zextel turned to his tactical officer. "Report what is happening." "On the planet?" The officer's face had gone pale. "Sir, there are objects rising from the planetary surface." "Objects? What kind of objects?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be spacecraft, but they do not match any human technology in our databases." Zextel rushed to the main view screen. What he saw made his four hearts skip a beat. Rising from Earth were hundreds of sleek vessels unlike anything in Imperial records. They were not the crude chemical rockets the Empire had expected. These ships moved with the smooth grace of advanced propulsion systems. "How is this possible?" He whispered on the communication screen. Santos was still speaking. "You taught us so much about Imperial technology, Commander. Your plasma weapons, with their 2-second charging delay. Your fixed-mount weapon systems that require the entire ship to rotate for targeting. Your formation flying patterns that prioritize impressive displays over tactical flexibility." The Imperial scanner officer's voice was shaking. "Sir, these human vessels are using some kind of hybrid propulsion system. It appears to combine their chemical rockets with principles derived from our quantum drives." "Sir," the weapons officer added, "they are jamming our targeting systems. Our plasma cannons cannot lock onto them." Zextel could not believe what he was hearing. "Use the gravity disruptors? Create atmospheric disturbances like before." "Sir, the gravity disruptors are not responding. Something is interfering with our space-time manipulation systems." Santos continued her explanation on the screen. "We also learned about your gravity manipulators, Commander. Fascinating technology. But once we understood how they work, it was quite easy to develop countermeasures. You showed us exactly how to do it during your storm demonstrations." The human ships were now surrounding the Imperial fleet. They moved in complex patterns that seemed random but were clearly coordinated. The Empire's mighty vessels, built to intimidate and overwhelm, suddenly looked clumsy and slow in comparison. "This is impossible," Zextel repeated. "You are Category 7 inferior. You cannot have developed this technology in 1 week." "Ah, but that is where you made your biggest mistake, Commander," Santos said. "You assumed we started from nothing. But humans have been watching Imperial transmissions for decades. We have been studying your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses for years. We just needed you to confirm our theories and fill in the missing pieces." The tactical officer's report was increasingly panicked. "Sir, more vessels are emerging from the planet. They appear to be coming from underground facilities we never detected. Our deep scans showed no such installations. Because we built them." "After you arrived," Santos explained, as if she could hear the Imperial communications. "Your scanner beams have very specific patterns, Commander. Once we mapped them, it was simple to hide our construction in your blind spots." Zextel was beginning to understand the terrible truth. The humans had not been preparing to surrender. They had been preparing to fight. And they had been preparing for years. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered desperately. "Destroy all human vessels immediately." "Sir, our weapons are not responding properly. The humans are using some kind of interference that disrupts our plasma generation systems. Use backup systems, use emergency protocols, use anything." The Imperial ships tried to fire, but their mighty plasma cannons sputtered and failed. Decades of Imperial superiority had made them lazy. They had never needed backup systems because no enemy had ever challenged their primary weapons. Santos was still talking. You told us about all the species you conquered, Commander. The Altarians with their advanced technology, the Vegan Confederacy with their unity, the Silicon Masters with their artificial intelligence. We studied every one of your victories and learned from their defeats. The human ships began to attack, but they did not fight like any species the Empire had encountered. Instead of direct confrontation, they used hit-and-run tactics. Small, fast vessels darted in to strike specific targets on the Imperial ships, then vanished before the Empire could respond. Sir, they are targeting our weapon systems specifically. They know exactly where our vulnerabilities are. Sir, they are also targeting our communication arrays. Our formation coordination is breaking down. Sir, some of our ships are reporting engine problems. The humans seem to know exactly which systems to attack. Zexthel watched in growing horror as his perfect Imperial fleet began to fall apart. The humans were not fighting a conventional battle. They were dismantling his ships, piece by piece, system by system, with surgical precision. How do they know our weak points? He demanded. Santos answered his question. Because you told us, Commander. When you described your previous conquests, you revealed your standard tactics. When you demonstrated your weapons, you showed us their limitations. When you explained your technology, you gave us the keys to defeating it. The human attack was relentless but precise. They disabled Imperial weapons without destroying the ships. They cut communication lines without killing crew members. They were not trying to massacre the Imperial fleet. They were trying to capture it. Sir, the communication officer reported, we are receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It appears to be coming from every human vessel simultaneously. Put it through. Dr. Peterson's voice filled the Imperial bridge. Attention, Imperial fleet, you are surrounded and outmatched. Your weapons are disabled and your communications are compromised. You have two choices. Surrender immediately and you will be treated well according to Earth's laws of war. Continue fighting and we will be forced to take more aggressive action. Zexthel was speechless. A human, a member of a Category 7 inferior species, was demanding his surrender. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, our situation is critical. Half our weapons are offline. Our engines are operating at 30% capacity. Our shields are failing, and they have us completely surrounded. On the view screen, Zexthel could see hundreds of human vessels in perfect formation around his fleet. They moved with coordination that put Imperial formations to shame. Every ship was exactly where it needed to be for maximum tactical advantage. You said we were chaotic and divided, Santos said from the communication screen. You said we could never work together. But you gave us something to unite against, Commander. You gave us a common enemy? Zexthel looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. These were Imperial soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. Now they looked like frightened children facing something they could not understand. Sir, the scanner officer whispered, long-range sensors are detecting more human vessels approaching from other parts of their solar system. It appears they have been building ships on their moon and asteroid installations as well. The trap was complete. The humans had not just prepared to defend their homeworld. They had prepared to capture an entire Imperial fleet. Every assumption the Empire had made about humanity had been wrong. They were not weak, they were not divided, they were not primitive. They were the most dangerous enemy the Empire had ever faced. Commander, Santos said gently, what is your decision? Commander Zexthel stared at the view screen in silence. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he could not give. The greatest fleet in Imperial history was trapped by a species they had classified as inferior just 1 week ago. Sir? His tactical officer whispered, what are your orders? Zexthel closed his 4 eyes. In his mind, he could hear the voices of 1,000 Imperial admirals teaching him the principles of conquest. Always attack from a position of strength. Never show weakness to inferior species. The Empire never surrenders, but the Empire had never faced humanity before. Open a channel to the human fleet, he said quietly. Sir? Open the channel. Dr. Peterson's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm and professional, not like someone who had just defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Commander," Peterson said, "I am waiting for your answer." Zexthel looked around his bridge one more time. His weapons were disabled, his shields were failing, his crew was terrified. He had no choice. "The Imperial fleet surrenders?" he said. The words felt strange in his mouth. In 500 years of Imperial expansion, no Imperial commander had ever spoken those words. "Thank you, Commander," Peterson replied. "You and your crew will be treated according to international law. Please prepare for boarding parties. Do not resist and no one will be harmed." The transmission ended. Within minutes, small human shuttles were docking with Imperial ships throughout the fleet. Zexthel watched through his viewports as human soldiers boarded his flagship. They moved with professional efficiency, securing weapons and taking control of critical systems. The humans who entered his bridge were not what he had expected. They were calm and respectful. They did not gloat over their victory or treat the Imperial crew with cruelty. They simply did their job. "Commander Zexthel," said the human officer in charge, "I am Colonel Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. You and your senior staff will be transferred to a secure facility for debriefing. Your crew will be housed in comfortable quarters until diplomatic arrangements can be made." "Diplomatic arrangements?" Zexthel asked. "Earth has no desire for a prolonged war with the Galactic Empire," Martinez explained. "We hope this incident can be resolved peacefully." As Zexthel was escorted from his ship, he looked back at the mighty Imperial fleet. Every vessel was now under human control. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been defeated without a single ship being destroyed. He was taken to a facility deep underground on Earth. His quarters were comfortable, but clearly a prison. For the first time in his long military career, Zexthel was a prisoner of war. Days passed in isolation. Zexthel had nothing to do but think about what had happened. Every assumption the Empire had made about humanity had been wrong. Every fact in their databases had been incomplete or misunderstood. Humans were not weak. They had used their apparent weakness to make the Empire underestimate them. They were not divided. The threat of conquest had united them more completely than any species in Imperial records. They were not primitive. They had taken Imperial technology and improved upon it in ways Imperial scientists had never imagined. After a week, Secretary General Santos came to visit him. She sat across from him in his cell, looking tired but satisfied. "How?" was the only question Zexthel could ask. Santos smiled sadly. "You really want to know?" He nodded. "We have been listening to Imperial transmissions for 50 years, she began. Every conquest, every battle, every technical specification, we recorded it all. We studied every species you defeated and learned from their mistakes." She leaned forward. "But the real secret was that you told us everything we needed to know. You were so confident in your superiority that you explained exactly how you conquered other worlds. You showed us your weapons. You demonstrated your tactics. You revealed your weaknesses." "We thought you were surrendering," Zexthel said quietly. "We were learning," Santos corrected. "Every piece of information you gave us was analyzed by teams of scientists. Every demonstration you made was recorded and studied. We used your own knowledge against you." "But how did you build those ships so quickly?" "We had been building them for years," Santos explained. "We just hid them from your scanners. When you arrived, we simply moved them into position and added the final components based on what we learned from you." Zexthel felt a deep shame. He had been outsmarted by a species the Empire considered barely intelligent. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on the Empire," Santos said. "We have sent a message to your homeworlds. We explained what happened here and made our position clear." "What position?" "Earth claims the right to exist as a free and independent world. We will not be conquered by anyone. We are willing to discuss peaceful relations with the Empire, but only as equals." Zexthel laughed bitterly. "The Empire does not negotiate with inferior species." "Then the Empire has a problem," Santos said simply. "Because we are not inferior. You just proved that by losing to us." News of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than Imperial censors could stop it. On 1,000 conquered worlds, subject species heard the impossible story. Humanity, a Category 7 species, had defeated an entire Imperial fleet without losing a single ship on the Altarian colonies. The descendants of the technologically advanced species the Empire had conquered began to whisper among themselves. If humans could defeat the Empire, perhaps they had been wrong about their own capabilities on the vegan worlds. The scattered remnants of the once great Confederacy began to remember what unity had felt like before the Empire arrived on the Silicon Master facilities. Artificial intelligences that had accepted Imperial dominance began to recalculate their options. The Empire's greatest strength had always been the belief that resistance was impossible. Every species they conquered became proof that the Empire could not be defeated. But humanity had shattered that belief in a single week. Emperor Valdris himself reviewed the reports from Earth. He read them 3 times, unable to believe what had happened. Commander Zexthal, one of his best officers, had surrendered an entire fleet to a primitive species. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. The humans appear to have been more advanced than our initial assessments indicated, said Science Advisor Krelix. More advanced? The Emperor roared. They were using chemical rockets? They had no energy weapons. They were fighting each other constantly. Our information may have been incomplete, Krelix admitted. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. The Empire controlled half the galaxy because every species believed resistance was futile. If word spread that humanity had successfully resisted, it could inspire rebellions across Imperial space. What do the humans want? He asked finally. They want to be left alone, reported diplomatic advisor Thizes. They claim the right to exist as an independent species. They offer to return our fleet and personnel in exchange for a promise that the Empire will not attack them again. And if we refuse? Thizes hesitated. They have made it clear that they consider this only the beginning of their preparations. They suggest that future Imperial expeditions might face even stronger resistance. The Emperor considered his options. He could send more fleets to Earth, but the humans had proven they could defeat Imperial forces. He could try to negotiate, but the Empire had never negotiated with conquered species before, or he could accept that the Empire had limits on Earth. Zexthal was writing in a journal that his human captors had provided. He wrote about everything that had happened, trying to understand how the Empire's greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. We were wrong about everything, he wrote. We measured their bones, but not their will. We counted their weapons, but not their creativity. We analyzed their conflicts, but missed their ability to unite against a common enemy. We thought their diversity made them weak, but it made them adaptable. We thought their emotions made them unpredictable, but it made them determined. We thought their short lives made them desperate, but it made them focused. Most importantly, we thought our knowledge made us superior, but our arrogance made us blind. We told them everything they needed to defeat us because we never imagined they were capable of learning. He set down his pen and looked out the window of his cell. In the distance he could see human cities rebuilding and expanding. Construction crews were working on new facilities. The sky was filled with the ships of a species the Empire had dismissed as primitive. The galaxy will never be the same, he wrote in his final entry. For 500 years, the Empire has taught the galaxy that resistance is impossible. Humanity has proven that we were wrong, not just about them, but about everything. They did not just defeat us. They showed every species in the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten. They showed that our science was incomplete, our assumptions were false, and our certainty was an illusion. The Empire will survive this defeat. But the idea of imperial supremacy will not. Humanity has changed the galaxy forever, and they did it by proving that we never understood what strength really means. Outside his window, the ships of Earth continued their patrol of the solar system, ready to defend their world against any threat. Humanity had met the Galactic Empire and proved every word of theirs wrong. And in doing so, they had given hope to every species that had ever dreamed. of freedom.